just in time.
Palm joint palms. And repeat after me. I take refuge in the Buddha. I take refuge in the Dharma. I take refuge in the Sangha. Keeping the palms joined. Palms down. All right, good morning, everybody. Nice to see you all. Thank you for showing up. Anyone here for the first time? Those here for the first time, what brings you here?
Michelle.
Michelle? I'm sorry. What did Michelle tell you? What did she promise you?
She didn't make any promises.
That's good. Good looking out, Michelle. I appreciate it. Well, we're glad you're here. First time? Yeah. What brings you here? Friend? That's all we got. Well, glad you're here. Welcome.
I like parties.
You like parties?
Yeah, this is a garden party?
Oh, you're here for the garden.
Yeah, is this not it?
Oh no, you're just early. Yeah, you're now early. Yeah, we're gonna start digging at noon, but you want to start now? I mean, you can get a head start. We can all stay in here and meditate and all that stuff. And you could be done in the next hour. Yeah, glad you're here. Thanks. What else? First time, last show. Yeah. Glad you're here. Anybody else? What brings you here? Yeah, a couple hands in the back. Go ahead. Yeah.
My friend.
Nice. Thanks, friend. Can't see the friend, but that's good. Yeah.
My son and I, my Heather, right here, told me it'd be a good thing for focus.
Yeah, focus. It's hard staying focused, isn't it? The interesting thing about focus is we actually can all focus. I mean, if we're not focused on one thing, then we're focused on something else. But we're actually always focused. Our focus just changes and moves. But we're focused. The difficulty is, what are we often focused on? The wrong things. That makes it easy, right? Cuts through a lot of stuff. You know, we're focused on unpleasant. You know, Buddhist teachings talk about pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral. And so our mind is, it jumps a lot, but it focuses, it's always focused on something, 100% of the time. How long we hold that focus varies. How many different things we focus on varies. What our intention behind that focus is varies. So I remember probably 15 years ago, I was doing meditation. I was at school downtown, and it was a class for students with ADD, ADHD, and I got there usually about 5-10 minutes early. I was talking to the teacher before we started, and they were playing chess, and so I was kind of waiting for that, piece to end. And for these kids, and everybody was telling me they had no ability to focus and pay attention. I mean, there could have been a fire in that building, and these kids would not have lost focus. And I'll never forget that moment, because it showed me, for a kid who growing up, I was always distracted. Or at least I felt like I was always distracted, that the focus is available and possible for all of us. The question is, what do we choose to focus on? And if we choose to focus on, in Buddhism, we're looking at intention a lot, but if we choose to focus on things that are pleasant, that bring us happiness, that bring us joy, then we feel a lot better. If we choose to focus on things that are unpleasant, that make us angry, that make us sad, that make us disappointed, that make us frustrated, then we're going to feel that way. Angry, sad, disappointed and frustrated. So when we begin the meditation practice, what you'll see is often people say when they meditate, they say, well, I can't focus. We're always focused. The practice is to begin to determine, what am I going to focus on? When am I going to focus on it? And do I have the ability to shift my focus when I want to? And that's not easy, because our minds, anyone's mind scattered all day long? One. Nice. Brave soul you are. But yeah, our minds get scattered. So, well, I'm glad you're all here. To those who are joining virtually, welcome. Thank you for showing up as well. Feel free as you are to say hello. There's a chat box on your screen somewhere. We'll start with a meditation practice. A couple things to tell you before we begin. Nothing's going to happen to you. All right, you're not going to float away. You're not going to have any mystical, magical experiences. The mind that races all day long is not going to shut off. Don't judge your practice. Meaning, don't ask yourself, is this working or not working? Are you doing it right or wrong? We're just going to sit. We're going to breathe. You'll hear sounds inside, sounds outside. This is life. Life is filled with chaos. And this practice is learning to get quiet and still within all of the chaos. Posture, you just want to be comfortable. If you are on a cushion, often it helps slide into the front third, pushing the stomach forward. If you're on a bench or chair, however you're seated, try to sit up straight if comfortable. Shoulders are relaxed, hands can be on the knees or lap, whatever is comfortable. If you need to move, simply move. Doesn't make you a bad meditator. If you need to cough, simply cough. You're not disrupting anyone. If anything, you just woke somebody up. If you're coughing because you're sick, then you can go home and come back tomorrow. And especially for those who are new, you're not going to shut your mind off. It's not going to go blank. You're not going to think nothing. Your mind will race just as much as it always does, maybe more. I'll say things periodically to remind you that you're lost in thought and bring you back to the present moment. I'll guide us as we begin, and we'll settle into a little bit of silence. And starting with the eyes closed if comfortable, or slightly open. Mouth is open or closed. We'll start with taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. And eventually, settle into a natural rhythm of the breath. Noticing the mind as it wanders. jumping from thought to thought. Start with gently guiding the attention, focus to the stomach or chest. Breathing in, feel them rise. Breathing out, they fall. Simply continue this practice, observing sensation of breath. Expecting nothing but to sit and breathe. And as the mind wanders, lost in thought, recognize it, release that thought, return attention, focus to the breath. Letting go of expectations. Letting go of judgments from the practice. Just sitting. Breathing. Learning to be comfortable in stillness, in quiet, just sitting, breathing. Keeping the mind alert, aware of each sound. Each thought, each physical sensation, yet concerned with nothing but sitting, breathing. And with the body still, rested, and the speech quiet, aware of all sounds, and the mind learning to settle. Know what it's like to just sit and breathe. Knowing with each breath, there's nothing else to do. Nowhere else to go. And no one else to be. Everything beautiful, exactly as it is. Sitting, breathing. Once again, taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. And when ready, slowly open the eyes. Slowly beginning to move. The most important with the practice of meditation is to recognize how you feel now, immediately after. Compare this to how you typically feel throughout your day. Recognize the difference, if there is one. Ask yourselves how you prefer to feel every day for the rest of your life. And realize every feel now, if it's quiet, calm, and still, or a busy mind, racing mind, whatever you're sitting with at this moment, it's nothing to do with anything I said. It's nothing to do with how we sit and hold the hands or cross the legs. It's nothing to do with the sounds around us or anything else for that matter. It's everything to do with your own mind and your own mind's reaction to an external condition. This is what the Buddha called pratitya samuppada, means dependent origination. This is the basis of the Buddha's awakening. The word Buddha simply means awakened. He was a human being, no different than any one of us, who began to understand why he suffered, why he got angry, sad, depressed, stressed, anxious. He began to understand the causal relationship of all phenomena. What that means, very simply for all of us, regardless where you come from or what you believe in and where you think you're going, your whole life is filled with things that happen. You react. More stuff happens, more reactions. That's it. That's what we get. This practice is simply learning what it's like to respond to something quietly, peacefully, still. Because for most of us, the way you responded to the last 20 minutes is quite different from how you respond to every other 20-minute period of your day. And so all we're working on is closing the gap to where the way you feel now is closer to how you feel always. Just as driven, motivated, productive, successful, whatever that means to you in your respective lives. But with a mind that's steady, clear, focused, distracted by nothing, disturbed by no one. It's not an easy practice. It's not necessarily fun. It's not an escape, as often people think it is. It is direct perception into the present moment. The present moment, as we know, is filled with conflict, chaos, difficulties, challenges. This is life. That's never going away. It jumps from one thing to the next thing, to the next thing. There's always something going on that you don't like. Always has been, always will be. That thing will just change. This practice is not about that. If your life is a crazy, hectic, stressed out mess, this practice is understanding that meditation doesn't fix that. But the way you respond to the world around you fixes your mess. This practice is not about fixing anybody else's mess. As much as we often would like to change what everybody else does to match everything we want them to do. Because of course, your views of the world are correct. So it's nice to sit with so many people whose views of the world are right. That's why I love doing this every Saturday morning, just to sit in a room filled with people who know what's right. I feel so much better now. But we have our perceptions of the world. Keep them. No one's telling you to abandon them. But this practice is recognizing that your attachments to your views and your ideas of how you want the world to be, which is not how it is the reason you suffer. This practice is not about ignoring what's going on in the world. It's not about closing your eyes to what's going on in the world. It's not about closing your heart to what's going on in the world. Not today, not 10 years ago, not 1,000 years ago, and not 1,000 years from now or anywhere else. There will always be things going on you don't like. The question is, are you a mess? That's the question. And for those who've never sat with me before, when I say you, I'm really just talking to myself. That's why we practice, because we recognize our own mess. We spend so much time trying to change, fix, control, manipulate everything and everyone around us, hoping they do this, hoping they do that, wishing they would do this, wishing they would do that. And this practice is controlling your reaction. So then when you engage in the world, you do it without hatred and anger, but you do it with love and kindness and compassion. That's this practice. Because when we feel hatred and anger, who suffers from that? When you feel hatred and anger, who's the only one that's suffering? You are. As I like to say, the world can be a mess, but that doesn't mean we have to be. And if we take care of ourselves, then we can actually engage in the world and make a difference. But it's really difficult. So we practice. So I'll pause there. For me, I always really just prefer to respond to questions, meditation, Buddhist practice, anything you're sitting with. And to those joining virtually, again, welcome. Glad you're here. Feel free as you are to say hello. Somewhere on the chat box, or somewhere on the screen, there's a chat box there. If you have any questions, you can put them in there. I'll do my best to respond. And we'll use the rest of our brief time this morning for questions. So there's a question here from Cinda. Jeff, I was wondering, you have been meditating for years. Have you noticed changes in your meditation experience? Any changes in your responses to your daily life over years of meditating? So the first part, to kind of expand a little bit on the first part, often, and that's why I will always tell people at the beginning when you sit to not expect anything. And the first part, as far as changes in my meditation experience, no. I've been doing this practice 25 years, every day for the last 22. Nothing in my meditation practice has changed. Because that would be like me saying to you, Cinda, or anyone else in the room, any of you watch Netflix? When you watch Netflix, is anything changing? You're just sitting there watching Netflix. What you're watching is different show, different time you have to get up and go pee, different amount of hours, you know, you won't stop looking at Netflix. And we talk about focus. I mean, you know, we could stare at Netflix for like 5 hours, like, I can't get up yet. Just one more episode. Next thing you know, it's 4 a.m. So to me, meditation is no different than watching Netflix. I'm talking about the actual experience of meditation. And to those of you who think meditation is something grand, then you hate this response. But to me, meditation is no different than watching Netflix. I'm watching something. When I sit in meditation, I'm watching my mind. That's all I'm doing. I'm just sitting. No different. All the sounds are always different. All the thoughts are always different. But what am I doing? So to me, the change in the experience is I'm just sitting. Sitting is just sitting, as the Buddha taught, sitting, standing, walking, or lying down. To me, meditation is a concentration and focus. What I'm working on is concentrating and focus on sensation of breath. Every 2 seconds, a thought arises, and that thought will be completely different. And then the practice is to come back to the breath. And then it comes back, another thought, back to the breath. Another thought, back to the breath. That is the practice. That for me has never changed. I don't view meditation as something I need to get better at. I don't view it as something I need to expand upon. I don't need to think about it as something I need to increase. I don't time it. I'm not judging it. I'm not gauging it. I don't give it a rating. I don't record it on an app. No offense to you who do. A lot of people use the apps, and I think they're phenomenal for the simple fact that if you have an app, you're already addicted to apps, so that might keep you addicted to meditation, which is great. So if you use apps, keep them, right? But just recognize you don't have to, like, you know, record your hours of meditation. But if that keeps you motivated and inspired, do it. So for me, meditation is just sitting and breathing. That in and of itself has never changed. The second part to your question of changes in my responses to daily life over years of meditating, absolutely. For me, we don't practice meditation to be good at meditation. We practice meditation to change the way we respond, right? So for example, you know, you just finish your meditation, you open your eyes, if immediately at that moment, you were in your car driving on the 805 freeway, immediately when you open your eyes, if somebody cuts you off, would it be that big of a deal? Not really. Because in that moment, you're steady, you're slow, you're whatever words you want to use. Even if you're scattered and miserable and depressed, you've still slowed down. And so in that moment, you're just kind of observing the world around you, right? But the way you feel after meditation, how long do you think that feeling lasts? Not that long. Because once you get up, you walk outside, you go back to the world, that world doesn't care that you just finished your meditation. They're going 1,000 miles an hour, you will very quickly get wrapped up into it. Somebody will cut you off on the freeway, next thing you know, you're flipping them off and honking at them again, right? Where here, somebody cuts you off going to get your shoes from the shoe rack or to the bathroom line, everyone's like, oh no, please, you go ahead. You know, people are so gentle and nice in places like this. No, it's okay, I don't mind. You know, are you that way in a grocery store? Are you that way in traffic? Are you that way at home with friends and family and loved ones? Or are you just like, no, get out of my way, I got something to do? But in these places, everyone's like, oh, namaste. So that's why we're doing a meditation practice, to change the way we respond outside of here. And yeah, that, I mean, when I think back to how I was 20 to 25 years ago, like, I didn't even know who that person was, you know? Yeah, I mean, growing up with as somebody who had no patience, an incredible temper, you know, fighting constantly. The amount of anger and hatred and rage that was in me that was triggered and snapped so easily, to now become the observer it's like completely different people. So yeah, but it's not about being good at meditation. It's about recognizing how it changes your life outside of here. And I also caution people not to like think about it like, well, if you do it X amount of years, then you're going to get X amount of results. Or, you know, often when people ask personal questions to anyone, then it's like, okay, well, that gives them some benchmark to work off of or something like that. I think those are very dangerous things to do. I think it's just to recognize, ultimately, the best way to recognize what meditation practice does for you is to do it. And then in your life, you'll see how it's changing things in your life, but not because it did this or that for somebody else. You know, my experience of meditation is irrelevant to your lives, but your experience of meditation is very relevant to your life. So the best response ultimately, Cinda, is, do this practice every day for the next year, and then see how your life changes. Because mine has nothing to do with yours. What else?
Yesterday, something triggered my control issues, because that's something I've been dealing with for me as long as I can remember. And I realized what I was feeling very powerless. When I was past that, I realized I love feeling inadequate, insecure. So I didn't say anything because I know it would be to manipulate the situation. And my other behaviors, I'll go get something to eat, go busy so I can run away from myself. So I'm just sitting with all this, and I don't know how to move past it because it's been going on for a long time. And
How many years?
Ever since I was a little girl, because my father was very abusive, so I was trying to be very nice and helpful to control so I wouldn't get beyond that. So it's been going on like my whole life, trying to control. Even helping, being of service, it's for me, it's a way to control, manipulate how people see me. So it's really strong.
Yeah. Yes, it is. That's it. Be with that.
Okay.
You're not going to change that.
Yeah.
You're not going to change that. You're not going to change that.
Okay.
You're going to get frustrated if you think you're going to change that. To me, the most beautiful part, and I know this practice for quite a while now, has been very important to you and really made significant changes in your life. And I think the most beautiful part of your practice and your questions week in and week out is that you are becoming very aware of how you work. Becoming very aware of your controlling nature. Very aware of your, kind of people-pleasing need to try to keep other people happy. Very aware of how afraid you are in each moment. Very aware of just your absolute terror. And this practice will not fix that.
Right.
But it will help you continuously become aware of it. And the first part of your question was, I've been sitting with this. That's what the practice is. It's to see it. But to recognize that when we see it, we don't have to then turn that into some sort of judgment, some critique, I'm a bad this, I'm a bad that. We don't have to turn that into a story. These are temporary emotions that will rise and fall. For you, they've just been arising a long time.
Yeah.
Childhood, at least 30 years. Right?
I relocate, I run, I do anything. It's like touching a hot stove. So now I'm just like being with it and just.
But that's my point. That is, and you've listened to me long enough. I don't like to look at progress, but to use that as an example, that's progress with this. Meaning you're just being with it.
Yeah.
And from that, you'll begin to learn more. And see, what is it like to sit with this fear, with this anger, with this resentment, with this lack of trust, with this insecurity? Be with those emotions. Those emotions are not you. They're just experiences that are temporary. And learning that you don't have to run from them. Mm-hmm. They don't have to turn to any, and whatever we turn to, we have healthy and unhealthy things that we run to. Right? We don't have enough time to get to all the unhealthy things. But even running to healthy things, the idea is that we're often trying to run and escape from present moment. And this practice isn't necessarily about fixing things. It's about being with life as it arises. You've had a whole life's worth of experiences. And the reason I say is it's not going to change that is this practice will not change your entire life's worth of experiences. But can you see your entire life's worth of experiences and stop hating yourself? And have compassion for yourself. That's the practice. And when you begin to see them and you realize these are just emotions.
They pass.
They pass. So it's learning to be with life as it is.
And I was looking on the back of your laptop, think good thoughts, speak good words. I said, that's the answer.
That's the answer.
Focus on that and just be with.
They should put that on a bumper sticker. Selling it. Yeah. Yeah, make millions. Yeah.
Thanks for the reminder in the beginning about choosing what to focus on.
Yeah.
But also just building on the last question, can you talk a little bit about the difference between selective focus and repression or avoidance. Because it's real easy for me to be like, oh, I'm just going to focus on the stuff that feels good,
Right.
and ignore the rest.
Yeah. So the question around, the ability to discern, and for me, this is Buddhist teaching around wisdom, to cultivate wisdom, to be able to discern what to focus on, when to focus on it, when it's skillful and helpful and when it's harmful. And so your question is around, if I understand it correctly, is if you recognize things that are unpleasant and you just want to focus on something else, but maybe you actually need to be focusing on what's unpleasant to begin to understand it and not just like, repress it and bury it and push it away. Yeah. I think there's the middle path. I think there's a balance there where it helps sometimes to, if we're in the right mental, emotional space, to say, okay, if you're having a really bad day already and stuff's coming up and you just cannot sit with it anymore, then focus on something else, right? But if it's a constant theme and that like this, whatever it may be that just keeps coming up for you, there are times and places where, yes, it's going to be really important to not ignore what's going on, because then it's just going to keep coming up and maybe even come up stronger and maybe come back and, make things worse. So I just think that we have to be in a relatively safe, healthy mindset and space and place, wherever that is, to be able to say, okay, I'm going to look at what's coming up right now and it's not pleasant. But if we try to do that all the time, then we just stay stuck in the cycle of madness. And if we, as I said, if we never look at it, then we're just kind of ignoring and pretending like, I'm good. This kind of, Chogyam Trungpa talked a lot about spiritual bypassing. Yeah. Like we can go to our meditation stuff and go to our yoga stuff, we can rock all our mala beads and just pretend, for me, I call it like the facade, this kind of wall we put up that says, well, I'm in my little yoga Buddha store and everything's fine.
Yeah.
Nah, maybe we're a mess and we have to look at that sometimes. Yeah.
Middle path.
Middle
That's
path,
actually-
balance. Yeah. Learn when to look at it and when not to look at it. Yes. What else? Yeah.
Might kind of relate to what the last two were. I've been preparing to move, so I've been doing a lot of decluttering.
Yeah.
And getting rid of a lot of stuff that, right, I've got these memories of old roommates or trips I went on or my marriage or whatever. And I've been pretty good about recognizing like the object isn't the memory, but then also an impermanence, right? But then also dealing with and acknowledging the nostalgia and just kind of enjoying it. But then I don't need this shirt or I don't need this book or whatever. I kind of, what I'm going through, I can kind of correlate to what these, in my way, what they were asking.
Yeah, definitely. And again, I think it's important to recognize, like, we have experiences in life. Like this idea, a lot of people, I'm not saying you with this question, but a lot of people who are newer to meditation and Buddhist practice might think that like, be here now, be present, as if we have to ignore and avoid everything that's happened in our past. No, everything that's happened in our past is really important. And it's really important that we look at, I think, as a practitioner. To just ignore it and pretend it didn't happen, then again, spiritual bypassing, like, oh, I'm so present. No, what I did this morning is important. What I did 10 years ago, 30 years ago, all those things are important to reflect on and be able to look at them, again, when you want to look at them, but also to be able to not stay stuck there. Because, a lot of good things have happened to us in the past and a lot of painful things have happened in the past. And if we spend all of our time focused on all of our past that was painful, that sucks. And when we spend all our time focusing on the pain from the past, then we're not even able to appreciate present moment. So same, I think there's a balance to look at things when you want and but not carry stuff with you forever. We carry stuff mentally and emotionally with us for our entire lives that just destroys us. It's like a 100-pound backpack. It's like, it's heavy. Yeah, there was a hand in the back somewhere. Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Am I back?
Yeah. I just saw the hand, not the head.
So there's this tiny little protest going on today. And all over the US and other places. And,
Yeah.
people that know me and know my work and my volunteering and who I am assume that that is somewhere I would be.
Yeah,
And I'm super happy that it's happening and there's people that need it and it's something that's important to many people. And it's just not that's not the space that I'm choosing to be in.
yeah,
And so I'm like stuck of how to respond and be respectful of what people in my life are choosing to do and also honor where I am without sounding condescending or I have it more figured out.
sure.
So just some suggestions.
Yeah, and I'm one of those people who does happen to know you a little bit also, but I'll try not to steer this too personally and just speak generally. The last I didn't think this till your very comment at the end. So the question for those who didn't hear it virtually was that there's a little protest going on today, so you've heard, and you are someone who typically, based on your life, your personal life, your work, that you would typically be there, and you're choosing at this moment not to be. And so you're kind of stuck, it sounds like, with maybe people, you didn't say this, but what I heard you say was maybe people even judging you or disappointed or upset at you for not being there, but then also you trying to, in essence, almost, again, you didn't say this either, but almost, this is how I translate things in my head, almost seemingly defend yourself. Like you feel like you have to defend yourself and say, well, no, I'm not going there. I'm going to go to my little Buddhist meditation thing, And so I think at the very end, you said something about, not being condescending. That triggered, and I don't sense this from you at all, but I'm going to say it anyways, the idea you may or may not have heard me talk about before, Buddhist arrogance. And I'll start with this, which again, I don't really think applies to you, but maybe slightly with the last comment, is that very often we get around meditation, Buddhist stuff, and, and I went through this at the very beginning, which to me, I only try to speak to things that I've experienced and really gone through myself. But at the very beginning, right, I mean, I spent majority of my life just tormenting people in places and things. And then all of a sudden I get into Buddhist practice and I didn't want to hang out with the people that I spent all my time tormenting people in places and things with. And, you spend a year in a monastery and you come back and the first thing I did was judge them. And I'm like, I'm not doing that stuff anymore. I am above you now. I have elevated myself. I am a Buddhist. I don't do those things. So all of a sudden I'm like judging the people that I was doing stuff with like last week, thinking I'm better than they are. And I always caution people around any sort of meditation, spiritual practice to not use it as like this kind of thing you hang over people's heads. It says like, well, I do this now, so I'm not like that. Well, there was a time where that was you and you were doing that stuff. So I think hopefully it's relatively easy to not view or judge them. And I don't even think you are at all for what they're doing. But I just wanted to say that first. And then the second piece is often people, to me, there's kind of three. That's one. The second part to this is often people think that taking care of yourself is not important. People learn about Buddhism and they talk about non-self and selflessness and these things and going beyond this ego and pride and all that. And often people jump to like this place where they feel like, well, then they don't matter. And you should just, devote your entire life, the Bodhisattva vow, to liberate all sentient beings from suffering. But the Bodhisattva had to fully awaken to their own Buddha nature to understand ultimate wisdom and ultimate compassion, which included the awareness of their sense of self, before they could even make a vow to say, I'm going to spend the rest of my life liberating all sentient beings from suffering. You can't ignore yourself on that journey. It's the oxygen mask, on an airplane. You must put on yourself first before the child. And so this idea that when we want to take care of ourselves, which often people have a hard time with, and even in this case, that kind of triggered my thought, like, you're doing this because that's what you want to do for you. What's wrong with that? Like, this is what feeds you right now. This is what your heart and your mind and your place in your life needs around you. For whatever reason, and there doesn't need to be justification of these things. You are choosing right now in this moment to take care of you and put yourself in a place where you feel safe, you feel comfortable, you feel at ease. So for me, I would think like, yay, proud of you, Dana, for actually prioritizing yourself and not putting the rest of the world first, which is what you spent so much of your life doing. Now you realize that you matter, right? We matter. We are important. And the third piece is to understand that, as I've talked about a lot recently, based on many questions that have come up around the same topics, that I believe the Buddha in his life he was absolutely rebellious. He was absolutely an activist. I mean, he spent 45 years of his life roaming the world, well, not really the world, but, roaming India, telling people to practice loving kindness, compassion, wisdom, forgiveness, understanding, generosity, morality, patience, wisdom, meditation. He spent 45 years aggressively doing that. I mean, if that's not being an activist, I don't know what is. Everybody has an idea in their head of what activism is for those who are activists. Thich Nhat Hanh, who I talk about a lot, you've heard me talk about, kind of coined the phrase engaged Buddhism from his work with Martin Luther King, and Martin Luther King nominated him for a Nobel Peace Prize for his work around social justice issues. Engage in the world, but do it with love and compassion. And if one is in a place where they're filled with hatred and anger, then what you're spreading is not love. We can hold all the signs in the world that say all the things we want to write, but what do we feel in that moment? And if we hold signs that, and I'm not what I would consider a traditional activist. I sit here day in and day out and I share the teachings of loving kindness and this practice. But if we hold signs that are saying one thing about how others should be, and we in that moment are filled with hatred and rage, how are we in that moment? We are hatred. We are rage. And what is it we actually want to stop? Hatred and rage. This is not comparing. This is not judging. This is not saying that your hatred and rage is better or worse than the other people's hatred and rage. This is recognizing that as we hold signs and scream and shout, accusing people of hatred and rage, do we have hatred and rage in us at this moment? Can you do me a favor? Will you just run this key to Maggie out there? Thanks. Right there. So I think it's really important to acknowledge and honor the fact, I think it's beautiful you're sitting here. You don't owe anybody any explanations. And at the same time, as you know, you're not better than they are because that's not where you want to be right now. You are taking care of you. That's what I feel. I think that's important. Yeah, and then we'll close.
So I had a very similar situation to her with people asking me to come along.
Yeah.
And I just said, I hope it stays safe.
Mm-hmm.
And I will be giving love and kindness vibes out to you as you're there.
Yeah.
Because it felt like like you're saying, I'm doing this for me. This is how I can benefit what I want to see changed in the world by what I can put out there.
Right.
And so I don't feel like I have to be there to voice what I want to see.
Yeah. That's super important, I think. And again, same. I think it's beautiful to recognize that. No guilt, no shame. It's not about who's doing this or that. Are you taking care of you right now? Because if you are not taking care of you, then what good are we to anybody? So I'm going to close on that. Join palms. May the benefit of this practice be shared with all beings in all directions. May all beings be at peace. May all be free from suffering. May this merit be transferred to those who need it most. All right, a few quick announcements before you all head out. Thank you for being here. My name is Jeff. I'm a Dharma Bum. We opened up this temple 18 years ago to introduce Buddhist practice to those who show up. Those of us who lead, we're not monks, we're not nuns, we're not gurus, we're not masters, we're not teachers, we're not looking for students. We're just practitioners. We do our best to take our understanding of Buddhist teachings and put it into terms that hopefully make sense to those who show up. Every night, different practices going on, different people from a different Buddhist tradition. We have probably 20 to 25 people that lead classes here every week. So there's always something different going on. A huge recovery sangha for anyone dealing with addiction, just about every day. Every Thursday, 4:30, we do, I think, probably the best thing around here. It's a food redistribution program. We prepare gourmet vegetarian meals, also known as peanut butter and jelly, and we feed people sleeping on the street. So anytime you think your life sucks and you lack gratitude for all you have, feed people sleep on the sidewalk, and it tends to kind of change things. And if that doesn't work, just keep showing up and doing it till it does. Other than that, for those who did show up for the meditation digging party, now it's your time. But yes, we are, as you've all seen or heard, if you haven't seen or heard, and for those who didn't get the Bhante, he wasn't able to come down to San Diego today, so it was announced, but if you didn't see it, obviously the blessing we postponed, we'll still do. But we are going to start digging out front. So for those who want to stick around, we're going to be digging about 6 inches deep and dig out the entire dirt. We've got a big truck that's showing up. Hopefully a bunch of shovels and some water, so we all don't, so we stay hydrated. But anyone that wants to stick around and help dig out front, we'll be out there. We're going to do it from 12 to 5. So if you want to go get food or something and come back and want to help out for an hour or whatever, that'd be really helpful. I don't imagine we're going to have 30 people digging at once. It might get a little dangerous. It's a small space. But yeah, I really just, appreciate y'all being here. Please be safe, be well. We'll see you soon. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you. Goodbye.